You ready? Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I know we're in the world of live stream now because I've had more texts or are you live streaming this? I can't make it kind of thing. So hopefully we'll record this. And if you want that recording or you want my notes, because some of the stuff that we talk about, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But if you have it, you can click to links and stuff. So just email me directly, and I will send that to you, or I'll send the recording. We'll post a recording on our website at indianhillathletics.org as well. So this is Guiding the College-Bound Athlete. I'm Brian Phelps, the athletic director here at Indian Hill, and started doing this a few years ago, a couple schools ago, and has just kind of grown. And I think the information is helpful. But if there are things that you want to know more about, call me directly or set up a meeting. What I encourage is for your student athlete to also come see me. I would say it's the best part of my job when I can sit with your son or your daughter and help them kind of navigate the things that we're going to talk about. And you have a big role in this, obviously, as well. But one of the things that you're going to hear tonight is let them own the process. And that means when they are contacting coaches and they're researching some of that, of course, the support and kind of the how-to and getting them to some of the things that we're going to talk about that they need to try to get to, of course, that's you're going to play a huge role in that. But as we contact coaches and those kinds of things, let them own that process. And I will also say I often get, hey, my daughter's going to come see you. Great, I would love that. Let's set something up. And then I don't hear from them. Or, you follow back up and say, I'm really going to have them come and get you or come see you. What I would say to that is they may not want to move on. You may want them to move on. So that's part of me kind of gauging where they are in the process as well. I'm living in this same world right now. I have a junior, a freshman, and then a couple little kids. And, I'm trying to practice what I preach. I talk about, this kind of stuff, and I sit with kids, and then I go to a school with my own daughter, and I'm like freaking out, not sure what to say or do, trying to, it's just a good reminder that sometimes it's okay to step back, let them own the process. Most of us are probably in the situation because if you're here, you probably do more than just high school athletics. You're probably part of some club or AAU team or whatever. And at this point in your student athlete's career, you've probably spent thousands of dollars in fees and travel. And that's where it becomes sometimes your kid might say, I'm burned out or I've had enough. And you as the parent are, well, what do you mean? Why do we spend every Thanksgiving or every holiday break at a tournament if this is the end of the road? So I say that my job is to kind of help when they want the help. If you want information, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but just know I too really want to talk to your son or daughter. So again, Guiding the College-Bound Athlete, one of the fruits of the labor here is currently, and this number will grow, this is my third year here at Indian Hill. I think my first year we had 18 student athletes move on to the next level. At this point we have 6, which is a great number. And I'm going to talk about kind of how that progresses throughout the year. But our current college commitments, I just thought it'd be fun to share with you. Emily Eckert, who has committed to play lacrosse at Butler University. And I'd love to point out, because this is important to me as an athletic director, Emily is also a 3-sport athlete moving on to the Division I level. I think that's pretty impressive. Lexi Larson, I just watched a team state tennis match against CHCA, and Lexi has been to state now. She's a junior, so she's committed that early. Lacrosse, she's even probably better in than tennis, but she just recently committed to the University of South Florida. These 6 student athletes happen to be all Division I athletes, but we're going to talk about the differences and between Division I, Division II, and Division III in a little bit. Rose Vigran just committed a few days ago to George Washington. Really excited for her for soccer. Jordan Church, Arkansas State, another Division I program. Mia Fiore, Xavier Soccer. And Gibson Holmes is going to Stanford from swimming. So a little story about Gibson. I think they're okay for me to share this, but this is part of how this happens. He had committed to Duke and has decommitted from Duke and now has committed to Stanford. So I'll get into it a little bit more later, what that means, but these commitments are a verbal commitment at this time. And I'm going to go through that again a little bit later. But until November 9th, which I'll have up here in a second when we talk about the National Letter of Intent Day, that's the first day of early signing period for most of our sports. So none of this is official for any student athlete until that day. They cannot sign a contract, they cannot sign the paperwork until that happens. So really, every single one of these student athletes could have another offer, change their mind, commit somewhere else. So we'll talk about that a little more as well. So the agenda, some things that we're going to talk about. The Eligibility Center, which if you were a student athlete as a parent, you may know as the Clearinghouse. That has changed. It's now the Eligibility Center. And that is where you have to go, your child has to go to get registered, at least at the Division I and Division II level. Some fun facts, the differences between Division I, Division II, Division III, and outside of the NCAA, because that's what we're talking about tonight, the three divisions within the NCAA, there are even other options to play. How to find schools, definition of some terms. We're really going to skim through that. That's more of a read-through if you have this presentation. I don't need to read those slides to you, but I think they are helpful. Some steps to being recruited, helpful recruiting hints, and then I just kind of have some percentages. If you're a high school athlete, your chances to go to the college level. If you're a college athlete, your chances to go to the professional ranks. Okay, so some of these basics. The NCAA Eligibility Center, like I mentioned, is where you go to register your son or daughter. And that is the center where they determine if they're eligible to move on to play college athletics. That means they know you've taken the right classes, your GPA is the right GPA, your test scores fit to certain institutions. If you are applying to Division III schools only, you don't have to register. This is only for Division I and Division II. Tonight will probably be more about experiences and opinions, and I'll throw some facts in there as well. But one of the stories that I have, so I've been in high school athletics, either as an athletic director or a coach or summer coach, since 1999. So I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of this process in a lot of different sports for a lot of different kids. And one of the stories that I think about is we had a student athlete that had early decision, which that's a whole nother thing, to Denison. And that was a great fit for him. He was a baseball player, but he was a young senior. So he graduated. The summer team that I was coaching and he was playing for were mostly rising seniors. So the Ohio University baseball coach found me at one tournament and said, "Do you have anyone that is an incoming freshman?" I said, "I have one guy, and he's a pitcher." And he had just took the program over. He said, "I'd love to talk to him." So we are in June. He's getting ready to leave to go to Denison University. And it's June. He gets a Division I offer to OU. And for this kid, it's like, how do I not do that? It was a whole nother process and kind of trying to get out of that commitment, that early decision commitment. But he went ahead and went to OU, which is a Division I program. And he never did the Eligibility Center because he knew he was going to Denison and he didn't need to do that. So my advice to you is, even if you think you don't fit at the Division I level, do it. It's $90. I think that's still what it is. So there's a little bit of a financial commitment. They do offer to waive that if you're in a situation where you need that. But I would suggest that you go ahead and register at the Eligibility Center, pay the $90, start getting your stuff in. It's recommended kind of that junior year. So if you're only a freshman, you have plenty of time. No deadline, like I said, for this kid. It was the summer going into college, and we were able to push things through and all that kind of stuff. But it just made things a little tougher, all right? So if you click on the Eligibility Center or go to ncaa.com or come and see me or go to the college counseling office, really the college counselors are the ones that help load all that information that's needed. Transcripts, which would include your GPA, test scores, those kinds of things. Once again, no registration, junior year. This is Division I or Division II. If you know you're going Division III, you don't need it, but I would still say, why not? All right, so some fun facts. There's 500,000 kids playing at the NCAA at one of these NCAA institutions. A little over 1,000 NCAA institutions. Tons of teams over 3 divisions. And again, remember, there are other schools that do not fall under NCAA. So there are even more opportunities than these 1,100 schools. So what are some differences? For Division I, it's the highest level you can play. Most of the Division I schools are going to be schools that you know, right? Ohio State, UC, and I did a mix here. I spent a couple years in Texas, so I had to throw some Texas schools in there for my presentation down there. But most of these coaches, all of these coaches really, winning determines if they have a job or not. So they are looking to take the very best. They own your time. It is a full-time job, no doubt about it. Athletic scholarships are awarded, but not everybody gets one, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. But there are about 360 of these schools. What do you think, what division, 1, 2, or 3, has the most schools available throughout the United States? If you think Division I has the most, raise your hand. If you think Division II has the most, raise your hand. If you think Division III has the most, raise your hand. Yep, you're right. Division III has the most opportunities. So high level, provide scholarships, most recognizable schools. The commitment is extreme, as I said, full-time job. I think as some of our kids have moved on, not just here, but even other schools that I've been to, they will say it's the hardest thing I've ever done. As hard as I thought I worked in club or AAU or my high school coach was really tough on us, a whole nother level. We just sent one of our girls basketball players to Furman University, Ella Riggs, awesome basketball player. In the gym when she wasn't at school all summer, Ella, how's it going? It's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the hardest thing that you will ever do at this level. There's no doubt about it. Okay, this is more of a fun graph to kind of help understand what this looks like. So don't worry about the Division I AA, that's not even a thing anymore. But what this shows, so I have 4 of these slides. Find your sport. If it's not up here, I'm sorry. But what it's showing is, so let's say, so basketball and football, if you're going Division I basketball or football, it's pretty likely you have a scholarship. And if you have a scholarship for football or basketball, it's a full ride. So for the girls, there's 15. So if you're going to a Division I, you're going on a full ride. On the boys' side, there's 13 of the 15. Now, every school doesn't have to give all 13 or all 15. It depends what kind of budget that athletic department has. But I like to look at baseball was really kind of my wheelhouse with helping kids and coaching. So at the Division I level, there's 11.7 scholarships available. Now, unlike basketball and football, they split those up, obviously, 11.7, right? So let's say it's a team, it's a roster of 30 kids. You figure if you're a big-time Division I program, you got one guy throwing 95 miles an hour, so he's getting a full ride, or he's getting 95%. So right away, you're down to 10.7. You probably have a couple of those kind of studs, right? So you have maybe 9 scholarships to offer throughout the rest of your program. So, but one of the reasons that I say that is when you go somewhere and you are a preferred walk-on, a PWO. That's not a terrible thing. These scholarships are contracts for 1 year, all right? So as you're a freshman, maybe you get into Ohio State and make the women's soccer team and you're not getting any money. You might get money sophomore year. You might get it junior year. You may lose money one of those years. That doesn't happen very often. But if you have the opportunity to play, that's where you have to weigh. Is that the school that you want to go to, even if you don't get money? But this is just kind of that, how many scholarships are available on each of those teams? Does that kind of make sense? So back to that 11.7 for a full baseball team. Kind of crazy. Each D1 school. So if you go to Ohio State, they have 11.7 scholarships to offer for their Ohio State baseball team. So the one that I love, if you're looking, what sport should I play to get the most money? It's right here at the bottom. Be a rower or ride horses. Because what that is saying, they give more scholarships out than kids that did that in high school. That's why is it 244%? So this number is what percentage of high school athletes make it at the collegiate level in that sport. So be a fencer, ride horses. Do you have a question? Which schools are Division I? I'll show you here in just a minute. I'm gonna show a map that you can click on and you can put on the information that you want to find, whether it's the part of the country, what kind of major you want to have, what division you're looking for, what sports. So that'll help you. That map will help you. So I'll get to it here in just a little bit. Sure. All right. Moving on. Division II, still a high level of academic or a high level of athletics, still getting scholarship money. Most of these schools are probably not as familiar to you as the Division I schools. You may have heard of some of these places. I have, I think, 8, but they're smaller schools where the kind of average enrollment at Division I is around that 10,000. Of course, we know plenty of places that are 50,000. But the Division II schools are typically a lot smaller. They don't give as many scholarships. But there's also not as much pressure, right? As we talked about at the Division I level, these coaches are keeping their jobs based on their record. They have a lot less visibility at the Division II level. Have you heard of a lot of these schools? Mercyhurst, which is Lake Erie, I think. A little different than Virginia and Ohio State and UC. And then at the Division III level, let me say this about Division III. There is nothing wrong with playing at the Division III level. There are great schools. There are athletic programs that are phenomenal. I think that when you don't understand the process or it's new to you, it's like a Division I or bust. The most important thing, if you want to continue with collegiate athletics, is finding the best fit. We're going to talk more about that as well. But some of those things are, maybe it's location, maybe it's how far away it is from home, maybe it's cost, maybe it's the majors they offer. An example for my own kid as we go through this, she plays a few different things, but she thinks she wants to be a collegiate field hockey player. And she's found a couple schools she's really liked. She really likes. She's also found a list of schools that she's totally marked off the list. We went and visited. We talked with the coaches. We saw the campus. We looked at what they have to offer. No way do I want to go there. That's part of this process too. But she fell in love with the school that's a little further than we'd like. And so she's kind of deep in with them now and talking more about what she wants to do. And, yeah, I want to do this, and I want to minor in Spanish. Like, oh, we don't have Spanish. What do you mean you don't have Spanish? So you can't assume that the school that you think you like even offers what you think you want to study. Now, there aren't going to be very many rising seniors or rising collegiate freshmen that know exactly what they want to do. But hopefully when you're going through this process, you have an idea of what you think you want to do. And that's just as important in this process of finding your school than the level of competition for athletics. So just keep that in mind. You're going to see this a couple different times, but a myth is there are no, when you hear, my kid went to Wittenberg and got a full athletic scholarship, they're lying. There's no such thing. There are no athletic scholarships at the Division III level. Back to that eligibility center and registering and the national letter of intent, which we're going to talk more about. I said November 9th is that national letter of intent early signing day. Those are contracts. You are accepting a contract for money at those Division I or Division II levels. There's not a contract like that at the Division III level because there is no athletic money that is being given to you. It doesn't mean you can't qualify for need-based money, academic scholarships. There's plenty of money available to still go to Division III, but you're not going on an athletic scholarship. Some of the schools that I personally live in more of a Division III world school. I think of places like, these are some of the best schools in the country. Johns Hopkins last year, Annie Isfording, one of our top soccer players, is playing soccer and playing. She's not sitting the bench waiting for her day one day at Johns Hopkins. It's one of the best schools in the country. She has that opportunity to go to a great school, play soccer, and some people may not even know Johns Hopkins is a Division III school. It's Division I in lacrosse. There are those instances where you're Division I in something and Division III in something else. But in Amherst or in Emory or DePaul, these are all, a Denison, those are all great schools. That was for you. Denison was for you. But these are great places. And the time commitment is far less, a much better balance between academics and athletics and social life. And these are the types of things that you as a family need to weigh where you fit best. Okay, so I talked about there are other schools. Other schools are junior colleges, NAIA, city colleges. So our focus will be on the NCAA schools, but there are other options, and that's just kind of what this is talking about. Okay, so back to what schools are Division I, and that's where this link should help. If you click on this link, if you want this presentation, and if you just walked in, what I would ask you to do, if you email me, and my contact's at the end, and I'm on the website, Athletic Director Brian Phelps. It's brian.phelps@ihsd.us. If you email me, I will send you this presentation, which will help you with some of the links. But if you click on this link, it's an interactive link. And what you can do is you can type in what you want. What sport are you looking for? And it'll take, if you put in badminton, it'll take off all the schools that don't have badminton because you're only looking for badminton schools. Or the divisions. If you're only looking for Division I schools, then only the blue dots, because those are Division I's, only the blue dots will stay up. So now you can kind of get a sense of where these, especially Division III. If you look at Division III, which is the green dots, there aren't a whole lot of Division IIIs in this area, right? Being in Texas, I felt like our student athletes, if they weren't going to an Ivy League school or if they weren't going to A&M or UT or TCU, like they weren't interested. And because it wasn't they're not as prevalent. There aren't as many Division III schools. But gosh, when you get in our area in the Northeast, they're flooded. There are tons of great Division III schools. So I hope that answered your question. Some of these other categories if you're looking for a particular state or public versus private, that's how you narrow down what schools are offered where. Do you have a question on that? Okay. Yeah, so is that helpful? Okay, great. So that's the interactive map to find out what schools, what region. What division, those kinds of things. All right, so over 1,000 schools that you can select from just using that map. So this definition of terms is where we're not going to spend a lot of time on. It's just more helpful information when we talk about the quiet period and dead period and what that means. Basically, it's when a coach can contact you, when they can't, when you can call them and they can answer, when you can be on campus, it's those kinds of things. So those are the kinds of things that you can follow up on in this presentation. We are going to talk about unofficial visits and official visits, the verbal commitment, which I talked a little bit about already, that national letter of intent, and spend very little time on the name, image, and likeness, which I'm sure most of you have heard about by now. Unofficial and official. This is when, as early as now, whatever grade you're in, even if there are 7th graders in here, unofficial visits are going to check out a campus. Maybe you've contacted the coach and plenty of times said, hey, I'm a basketball player and I'd love to just meet you, and maybe they have time for you, maybe they don't, maybe, hey, we're going to be practicing, feel free to watch. When it's on your dime, when you are paying to visit, you can do that whenever you want. You can go as often as you want. Those are unofficial visits. That is your family on their way to vacation. I'm going to swing by the University of South Carolina and walk the campus and maybe have a chance to talk to a coach because I've let them know we're coming early enough and that kind of stuff. An official visit, which you only get 5 official visits, you have built a relationship with that coaching staff already. That's not just calling Ohio State University and saying, I want to take an official visit, like, who are you, kind of thing. So you have already developed some type of relationship with this coaching staff and school, but they will pay for a lot of that visit. I was lucky enough with one of my baseball kids that ended up at the University of Louisville, but Purdue was recruiting him, and his dad had something and he couldn't go, and he said, hey, will you go with Blake to Purdue? And I said, yes, I will, because it was a Saturday night playing Notre Dame, and we were on the sideline and had dinner, and it was great, and that's what an official visit could look like, where you have reasonable entertainment expenses, meaning tickets to the game. You have 3 meals in a day. You have lodging. They are hosting you, and they are taking care of sometimes your travel. Now, it can be any range of that. They may say, if you get here, we'll give you tickets. Or it could be full out. We're paying for you to get here. We're paying for your stay. We're paying for your meals. We're paying. So that's what an official visit looks like. So when you set up an official visit, you have, when you arrive, you have a true agenda, itinerary, and it's being taken care of. So again, you only have 5 of those, and that is because you have built a relationship along the way, and they really think they like you, and you really think you like them. So I would say save those as much as possible, and use your unofficial visits as often as you like. That verbal commitment, I've really already explained it, but what that is, you have liked a school, or you like a school, and you like a staff, and they like you, and you've talked about, they've talked about with you where you fit, and they have made that commitment to you. Like, you have a roster spot if you want to come here, and you say, I think I do want to go there. I would like to verbally commit to you. And you post I've committed to wherever, and that's great. That's fun. They can decommit from you. They can say, wow, I found somebody I like a little better. It's like dating. You think you're really serious, but you haven't quite tied the knot yet. So the verbal commitment is really just that. You like each other. You have a plan to go there. But there's no contract in place. Okay? So until that national letter of intent, which I'm going to talk about again in a minute, it is that. You've committed. You think it's going to work out. But there is nothing that happens except for building or burning bridges, right? That you don't want to commit to schools and then decommit. You don't want that kind of reputation. You don't want to burn those bridges. But really, legally or financially, nothing happens. So that national letter of intent, as I mentioned, is you are signing a contract. They have offered you money. This is if you are getting scholarship money at the Division I or Division II level. The Ivy League has something else where it's more of a letter of intent to go through the academic process or something like that. Because the Ivy League, which is Division I, also does not offer any athletic money. So if Harvard or Princeton is your dream, and you are a stud soccer player, you are going there to get your education first. There's no doubt about it. Okay, you are going to pay that nut, that $80,000 or whatever, and if your family can afford that, and that's not an issue, good for you. But you are not getting any athletic money to attend an Ivy League school. It really operates a lot like at the Division III level. So as I mentioned before, those contracts are one-year deals. Now, usually, something really has to crazy happen for them to not re-up that contract. Maybe you've gotten yourself in trouble, you've lost your scholarship, you have to stay as a paid student athlete to kind of earn it back. Like that's when that happens. Typically, you're not, well, you didn't rush for enough yards, we're going to give it to somebody. That's really not how it happens. You've gotten yourself in trouble, you've lost your scholarship, and you either have to decide to go somewhere else or earn it back. Just talking about how much money is given out. That's a lot of money at the Division I and II level that's given out in athletic scholarships. And so as I mentioned a couple times already, this National Letter of Intent Signing Day, I will be working with our 6 families here in the next couple weeks. Trying to find, is November 9th the day that everybody can be here and do their paperwork? Or do we have to go to the 10th or 11th? So the way that this works, what this is saying, this November 9th is for basketball minus football and everything else. So football has a later date, December, I think. Yeah, December 21st. So football will not be doing the early signing in November. It's really everybody else. And then this early signing day for basketball, it ends in a few days after that initial, and then picks back up later. And some of that there's lots of reasons why it's like that. Really, everything else you can sign from November 9th through August. So football and basketball are the oddities with that. But this is when you can make your commitment official. So those 6 student athletes that I showed you earlier that are all Division I athletes, on November 9th or whenever they sign their contract, that is when they have a legally binded contract to attend that institution. Name, image, and likeness, that's now the business world of college athletics. That is creating deals to be paid as an amateur athlete. And really not going to spend a lot of time on it, but has anyone not heard of NIL? Okay, so probably the most important part tonight. And this is what you as a parent can do. This is what you as a student athlete can do. This is what we will do if you come see me. We'll start these lists. So being at Indian Hill, there's a pretty good chance you're taking the right classes, okay? So when you do the eligibility center, you're not going to be missing a credit of history or not having enough. We are all over that, right? We have a great college counseling department, and those are the things that will not be missed attending Indian Hill. So those are the kinds of things you don't have to worry about. We'll register with NCAA like we've talked about. Now, here come the lists. in my opinion, and this number can be whatever you want, but the higher the number is, the more work you're going to do. So you really should think about 3 different lists. Your reach, I think that's a good fit, maybe still a stretch, and then a fallback. And I'll just use random schools. Maybe that reach school is, I really would love to go to Ohio State, and I'd really love to go to Princeton, and I'd really love to go to Michigan, and I'd really love to go to Virginia. Well, everybody really wants to go to those places. So when you're talking about a Notre Dame or those kinds of schools, those are reach schools for 99.9% of the student athletes, okay? Because they are some of the most desirable places that you can go. So those should automatically be, if they're on your list, in that reach category. And then, okay, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm a Division I athlete, so that kind of where I think I fit, maybe now is Miami University and Ball State and Wright State and, a lower level Division I, but it's still Division I because I think I'm a Division I kid. And then now my fallbacks maybe are that Mercyhurst that we talked about. That's a Division II. It's a Wittenberg. It's an Ohio Wesleyan. Those places are close to home. I know I can play there, or I think I know I can play there. And that's my list. So now that you have your list, and if that list is 25 schools, I'm just telling you, you need to pare it down, okay? And it doesn't mean you can't go back to it and redo your list that, maybe you've decided, nope, those schools aren't going to fit for me, so I need to get new schools on the list. Because what you need to do, you need to start researching those schools. When you contact the schools, and we'll talk about that as well, you need to have some type of personal connection to the schools. Again, in my opinion, I really love the business school at Notre Dame. My uncle went there, and I've spent my whole life going to Saturday football games, and I've always wanted to, kind of thing. A little bit of a personal touch. If you are sending emails, to whom it may concern, I would really, that's not what we're doing. It has to start to become personal. So those are your lists. Now, once you have your list, some of the things that you need to do when you're contacting these schools, video. And this doesn't mean a highlight reel, okay? And when it's 2 game films, you're probably more, it's probably not a cold call as much, but you're trying to give short and concise, you're trying to catch the eye of a coach. So if you have a video of this 2 to 4 or 3 to 5 minutes, that's going to be the max time they have unless they want to see more. They see the video like, oh my gosh, this is an unbelievable athlete. Yes, I want to see that full game video now. So little short, you don't need the music, you don't need a professional editor. Coaches will tell you over, and I put it on mute anyway. I don't even know what songs you're playing. I don't want to listen to that stuff. They don't want to listen to what your kid's probably putting on that video anyway. You don't need to spend $2,500 to create a video. Now, it doesn't mean you can't. If that stuff just doesn't matter and you'd rather it be as nice, you can do that. But the rawness of video, you can bring an iPad or a phone and you can get, that 3 to 5 minutes of skills and drills and a little game footage. You can do that. Everybody in here can do that. We also use video in most of our athletic facilities, whether it's Huddle, whether it's VO, or you can upload an iPad video into Huddle, and I think that's good advice. If you don't know how to use Huddle or video on Huddle, that would be a good thing to learn. And that can be from a teammate, that can be from a coach. We can create a tutorial class and have Huddle teach you. So that would be I'm guessing most of our football and basketball guys, because I know they use it a ton, or will use it a ton, probably have a pretty good idea. But if you don't, you need to ask. It's a really valuable tool. So that video, as I talked about earlier, research the school. Before you start trying to create a relationship with these schools, do they have the major you're even interested in? like the example that I gave before, no Spanish. Well, that kind of ruins that. Do you think they're going to be recruiting your position? Another example, we had a kid that went to a much higher level school than he thought he wanted to go to. And he picked a mid-major Division I school, and he was a catcher, and they weren't interested. And he was like, what do you mean you're not interested? I mean, I'm at least that level of a player. And he was right. A higher level school ended up taking him. But that school already had 4 catchers on the roster, and they weren't graduating anytime soon. So they've already locked up money to that kid, or those 4 kids. So even though you may be as good or better, we don't need you. I'm looking for a left fielder and a shortstop and 3 pitchers. That's where our money has to go. Or in basketball, hey, we have all big people. I need some guards, and you're a big person, and you're going to fit somewhere great, but it's just not here. So looking at rosters, knowing now if you're a freshman or sophomore, it's a little harder to project. But if you're a junior or senior, you can kind of see when they're graduating and what positions and kind of start doing a little bit of that guesswork. That's part of the research. Another thing that I think is helpful to look at when you look at rosters, where are the kids coming from? So field hockey is a sport where, depending on the school that you're looking for, may recruit internationally more than stateside. And if you're not Swedish or from the Netherlands or wherever, it's probably going to be harder for you to go there because that's what that coach looks for. So that's what I talk about, doing some research in this particular school, positions, where kids are coming from, when kids are graduating, those kinds of things. I'll use soccer. When it's how do they play? If you are going to the University of Kentucky women's soccer games because that's where you want to go, and you're whatever position, and they don't play that type of system, you probably don't fit, unless you just think they're going to take me as an athlete and they'll figure out where I'll fit later. That could happen, but do they run the type of system? Back to basketball. If they're a run and gun type of team and they're trying to score 100 points, and you're 6'10", and you're not that kind of player, maybe that's not the system that you should be looking for. So those are the kinds of things that you can find out in your research. Talk to people on the team if you have that luxury. Find a way to connect. Maybe you know someone that goes there or knows someone that knows someone, and what's the culture like? What are the coaches like? Do they take care of their players? Do they, that's some investigation you can do. And this is a very real topic for most of us, including me. 4 kids, I'm going through this. How much does it cost? If my kid doesn't get any money, can we afford to go there? Do we want to be close to home? Does she want to get as far away from as possible? Those are things to consider. It's okay when you sit down and make that final decision for money to be a factor. It has to fit all the way around, not just that you got into Harvard and nothing else matters. It matters. It matters. Okay, so those first contacts, back to your kid should own this process. You as the parent should not be emailing the college coaches. My kid would really love to go there. That 100% big no-no. They need to own that process. It doesn't mean you can't edit their email or look it over or give them some helpful hints. Of course, you're a partner in this. But let them contact the coaches. And even as the dad, as I talked about it earlier, like I'm going through this and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to remember to practice what I preach. We're at a school. The coach is talking to my kid, not me, and I'm starting to answer the question, what am I doing? She's not talking. She doesn't care what I think. She wants to know what she thinks. And that's where you just have to walk away, and they are going to be adults soon, and they need to own this process. So let them own it. This is their process more than it is yours. Keep those letters short, and this is where I think I can help. What information goes into this email? Who they are, what school they go to, some quick hitters, like, I'll go back to baseball, show up for a tournament, or usually coaches will contact you earlier. What kids on your roster have at least a 30 ACT? Because if they don't have a 30, this was Yale, Can't talk to them, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good they are. All right, so what kids have this? So in this email, sell yourself that way. Hey, my GPA is this. These are classes that I take. I'm an AP student. My ACT is whatever. If you're trying to get Amherst's attention and you know you're that kind of student, lead off with that. Right away they know, okay, they at least fit the academic profile. That part's important. That copy or link to the recruiting video, I talked about athletes making the first contact. This bio sheet, I'll just show you an example. And again, if you get this presentation, you can copy it. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's what we use, kind of a one-sheet info sheet for my daughter that includes these kinds of things, honors they've received. I'll try to make this my last baseball analogy. What a coach does not care about. Don't tell in summer baseball or even high school baseball, I hit 500 and I had 32 stolen bases. That might help a little bit. Okay, he must be a fast kid. But they don't know who you're playing against. They don't know, that stuff doesn't matter. The stats, and as an athletic director, and some of you may be guilty in here, I won't call out any names, but when I get that call like, hey, you missed a rebound in the last game, I don't care. I care because we want to showcase our kids and we want it to be accurate. But in the world of how much that matters, there's other things that I would suggest that you worry about, that you care about. So those are the kinds of things that they're going to be a lot less concerned about than what the grades are and the position and the height and weight, because part of this is passing the eye test, of course, depending what sport you play. But when you walk on to their campus or to their ID camp and, you're a good-looking athlete, that matters. If you're not, that's okay too. You're just going to have to find another way to sell yourself. Okay, so this is that athletic resume. You should have a picture of your kid, or your kid should put a picture of themselves on the resume. That's part of that eye test, kind of making that connection also. So when I meet you, maybe that kind of rings a bell. So the categories that I have, just a little bit about me, not me, but my kid. Some of the leadership and recognition, maybe, captain would be great, but, I am the president of the recycling club. That stuff matters too. They want to see a well-rounded, what kind of kid am I getting? What other things are they involved in? Other interests, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, again, we're looking at more the Division III, I think it's great that she can say, I'm a lacrosse player, and I'm a basketball player, and I'm a field hockey player, because and I play for this club in field hockey, and I go to these tournaments, and by the way, come see me at this tournament. They want that. What I think a college coach thinks of when they see that, gosh, they're pretty good now, and they're playing 3 sports, so they're not dedicating 10 months out of the year or 11 months out of the year. When I get them, and they're going to be more dedicated to field hockey or soccer, how much better are they going to get? That's what college coaches typically have, really big egos. Man, as soon as I get a hold of them, I'm going to make them a lot better. And they probably will. But I think being that multi-sport athlete, showing that you have more room to grow because you're not just focusing on that sport all the time. Again, that's opinion. I may be totally wrong, but that's what I think. And then how to contact, their cell number, their email number. Social media these days are important. They will follow you on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media handles that you have. And the other part of what's so important with that is you better not be posting silly stuff, because they're looking at that too. When they like 3 kids, they've narrowed it down to 3 kids and they know they only have 2 spots, they're probably more looking for who they can eliminate, because they're making poor decisions, than, who are my 2 favorites. So I think that's really important, and it's really important for you to discuss with your kid. Increasing the exposure, it rarely happens. I had a conversation with a kid the other day, what do you want to do next year? What do you want to do in the next couple years? I'm just waiting for someone to offer me. That's not how it works. Like, if you haven't done a lot of these types of things, it's a different world. You know, coaches just don't know who you are. You may have help with high school coaches or your club coach getting your name out there, but you have to be very proactive. Not only reaching out, but it's really hard to just play high school athletics and move on at a high level. Again, in my opinion, you have to do something outside, even if you're really not on a team, but you're attending camps that they offer, and that's where it gets a little tricky. You probably get mail all the time, come to this, or emails, and it's hard to decide, like, what's legit. Or when you get a letter, everybody likes to get a letter in the mail, and most of the time, those are a generic letter. You have fit a profile, you're a certain grade, that you play a sport, and they're casting their net out wide. And they may even invite you generically to their camp. Well, for most of these schools, that is their fundraiser for their program. It doesn't mean something good can't come out of it, but until you really have more of a relationship and, like, you know what, I would love, we're having this 10-person camp on this date, I would love for you to be there. That's a lot different than responding to junk mail. So as that list that we're talking about, those reach schools, those kind of in the middle schools, it's the same thing. You have to decide where you spend your time and money to go to camps. It may be, just Ohio State is no doubt my number one. I'm going to go to everything they offer. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I still love Ohio State, but I'll find somewhere else. Like, you can't go to everything. You can go to I like a little bit, again, some personal experience here recently. I like the camps where they say, you know what, we're taking 60 kids. There's 60 kids, and there's going to be 48 coaches, all divisions there. Like, I love those kind of camps. Not that I think a ton comes out of it that day, but, it's a 3-day camp, 48 coaches, 60 kids. Every coach is going to coach your kid for like a session or a game. And what happens with that is my kid comes home and says, I've never even heard of Bucknell. I love that Bucknell coach. He was awesome, or she was awesome. And now, maybe you get some good feedback and, you click a little bit, and now you want to go check out more about Bucknell or whatever the school. And that's how some of those relationships can start. So when you're doing those big camps, I would look at it more down the road than walking out of there with the scholarship. But now you have a sense, like, I would never, I thought I loved the university of whatever, but I would never want to play for that coach. That's what you get out of those. But as much as you can focus on, I love that school, I want to go to the camp, I want them to see me 3 or 4 times, that's what's going to give you the best, help make the best decision, again, in my opinion. It's important that you play in some tournaments outside of what you're doing in high school, and let those coaches know. You've built relationships. Hey, I'm going to be at this tournament, or they're going to be recruiting that tournament. Here's my game schedule. Make it as easy for them as possible. They shouldn't be searching you out to find out where you are. Like, we're going to spend Thanksgiving in Tampa. My wife hates me. But we're going to be spending Thanksgiving in Tampa for a tournament for her club team. And all of that, they get their schedule. And those 5 or 6 coaches that she knows will be there, hey, coach, I would love to see you. This is when I'm playing. I'm wearing number 22. And that's how, and they will put you on your list. If you email them 2 days before the tournament, you're probably not making the list. That's another thing that they often will say. We're trying to set our agenda. We want to see. That's a great way and cheap way for us to see you, but make it easy for them, okay, if you're doing that kind of stuff. And then the final choice. What you need to remember, they're not just recruiting you. You are recruiting them. It's got to be a fit for you too. Just because somebody likes you doesn't mean you have to like them back. And if I have one piece of advice, your goal should not be, I'm going to go to the highest level school that offers me something. Like, we fall in that trap. The goal should be, I'm going to find the best fit athletically, academically, location, coach with a caveat. Coaches change. If you go someplace just because you like a coach, they may not be there when you graduate, okay? So there's a lot of factors, financial, that academic offering. If something happens to your athletic career, you burn out, there's an injury, whatever, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I would still want to go to that school. I think that's the easiest and best way to evaluate if you've picked the right school. Some of the things we already talked about, don't overstate your GPA. Say what it is. They're going to get your transcripts anyway, so they're going to see it. Be good on social media. Don't be too overbearing. Mom and dad, stay out of it, for the most part. There's a time for you to get in there, but let them do the heavy work on this. And, again, this last one, it's up to you. But there's all kinds of recruiting services out there that'll help. And some are good, and some are helpful. But there isn't anything that you can't do without the help of me or coach or